And I can't even read you the title of this article. I'll get in trouble. I'll get demonetized, or I'll get a strike on the channel. Anywho, National City Mayor Ron Morrison says controversial new California law caused Brazen prostitution to spiral. Just, woo! What's going on in California? Some of the same stuff that's going on here in Seattle. We're just criminal activity? What criminal activity? Everything's fine. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Why aren't the girls wearing any clothes? Well, that's what we're going to get into. Here we go. This one leads off pretty strong. Women wearing only G-strings while bending over in front of traffic has become an increasingly common sight in National City, California, as prostitution issues spiral after the implementation of a controversial state law. The city's mayor told Fox News Digital, "They're waving to people on the freeway, or just to be honest with you, they're bending over for the freeway. I don't know how else to put it. They're showing their wares." National City Mayor Ron Morrison told Fox News Digital in an interview this month. I have talked multiple times about the exact same thing that we see in Seattle on Aurora Avenue North. There are multiple YouTube channels out there that openly, I mean, it's, and the YouTube channels to me, they are taking advantage of women that are probably making some bad choices and are being human trafficked. That's the bottom line. Some of them are probably fully there on their own-ish, but so many of them come from broken homes, broken backgrounds. You want your daughter out there? You want your girlfriend out there doing that kind of stuff? No. And some of the things I've seen, I mean, literally somebody will, they're out there in Seattle. It's a little bit different. National City is just south of San Diego. So it's a warm weather environment. So going out on the street in virtually nothing, because that's about what a G-string is. In Seattle, you're going to have a little bit more cover up, but not much to keep you, from the elements. It's a cold gig in Seattle, walking the streets like they do. But on any given day in Seattle, and this is probably, is this 15 miles from where I'm sitting? Probably. The issue in Seattle is that, advertising yourself and walking the streets is not illegal. The actual act of selling sex for money, if you get caught on that end, is illegal. But walking around and next to nothing is no longer illegal. So they can't bust them on that because of racism. I don't know. California Governor Gavin Newsom, who is more concerned about Skittles being taken off the market than prostitution, he signed Senate Bill 357 in July 2022, which repealed a previous law that banned loitering with the intent to engage in prostitution. That's the one in Seattle. You can't get busted for that. Hey, we know what you're doing here. Yeah, it's not illegal anymore. So this one area of town is it's loaded at any given time. 7 a.m. in the morning, I've had people tell me they're going to a job or job site, and they're like, yeah, I saw like 5 of them, and they're wearing next to nothing. Well, that's how you get noticed, right? You bend over in front of traffic. The law took effect in January this year, with Morrison arguing that the moment Newsom's pen touched the bill, pimps in the state knew they could expand their prostitution ventures with little repercussions from law enforcement because they're no longer breaking the law on that end of things, right? So progressive, just so progressive. Why are we doing this? Yeah. The moment it was signed by the governor, boom, everyone knew the rules were out the window, Morrison told Fox News Digital. And then we've got pictures and, it's just so bad. Those that are out there on the street, most of them are wearing less than what you would consider a scanty negligee. That's what I talk about. And people just flat don't believe me. And then every now and then I'll have somebody say, you know that one thing you talked about on Aurora? And I'm like, like, I saw them. It's like they're seeing Bigfoot or something. I saw them. Sean, I saw them. It was weird. Yeah. Yeah. My son, Brennan, who's no longer with us, he and his girlfriend used to work out at Planet Fitness, which has a large parking lot that is, well, it's got this element to it all day long. And the young lady that my son was dating, she very pretty girl. And somebody recruited her in the parking lot. Hey, yeah, do you, how are your oral skills? And she said, no, I'm just here to work out. And the guy who was an older guy who's like, well, what about your mom? What about your sister? You got any hot friends? You know, they're always recruiting. And this is in the parking lot of a gym in Seattle, mid-city. It is just flaunting in everybody's face. And so a lot of people are screaming, hey, can't you get them on indecent exposure? That is always my thought as well. It's like, okay, you're literally wearing nothing. How is this okay? Okay, well, here's how it's okay. And the problem is the way our laws read in this state and in Washington state, let's be honest, prostitution, people want to say, all right, but it's a lot of human trafficking. You're taking advantage of the women. You got a whole bunch of other criminal elements going on as well. And we do not have the manpower police-wise to make a dent in prostitution or human trafficking. It's just going on. We've just kind of, So there's plenty of folks out there like Christine Moreland here in Seattle that are, it's kind of like the We Heart Seattle going out and picking up garbage. Christine Moreland goes out and basically, talks with women and does a lot of that stuff as far as this whole industry going on. The definition of indecent exposure is as long as the genitals are covered. Anything else is fair game out in public. So the question is, the outfits that they're wearing, do they cover the very bare essentials? Kind of. No. They don't. Would you want to take your, 10, 11, 12-year-old son on a little field trip to Aurora and say, hey, this is just what's going on? They would have some questions. Like, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? And you'd have to explain, well, so here's how the law works. National City is a diverse working class city of roughly 60,000 residents just outside San Diego on the Bay, Morrison said. Prostitution issues are no stranger to the city, with the mayor explaining that as an urban area, sex workers have been known to cross the San Diego city border, but never at the rate he's currently seeing. Very much beyond Brazen, Morrison said, of what he's seeing on his streets. Prostitutes gather in a downtown area that faces a freeway and are most often seen early in the morning and around 3 p.m. Morrison added that another new California law that legalized jaywalking has compounded the issues as some women stand in traffic to attract a John. I have seen that. I have seen somebody stop in the crosswalk. And you're like, okay, all right, I see you there because I can't avoid it. I need to go that way, and you in your outfit are right there. We need to be going. Thankfully, they passed, and I'm like, okay, yeah, time to get out of here. I was driving on one of the streets the other day, and there's this young lady standing there in the middle of the street wearing basically a G-string, and that was it, and a couple pasties. But she's right in front of my car. I couldn't move. So I did ask her very politely, would you please move out of the street? And she looked at me and says, if you don't want to talk to me, you can go around, Morrison said. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So awkward, right? So awkward. I'm just trying to get to my appointment. Could you get out of the way? No, I'm not looking to do that. Move along. Businesses ranging from mom and pop stores to national hotel chains have sounded off to the mayor that the prostitutes are driving away business and have forced some businesses to refund families who were appalled at seeing nearly naked women while on their California getaway. Well, you could spin that as we did get an eyeful. We did see the sights. Now, they weren't necessarily the sights that you were thinking. And no, it wasn't a family-friendly trip, but sometimes education, you got to pay a price for the educational opportunities that you and the family take, right? Yeah, that's never going to fly, is it, in any family? No, I don't think so. Even a local school covered its windows after prostitutes were repeatedly found hanging out near its gates, Morrison said. The mayor argues that the issue comes down to Senate Bill 357, which he called an idiotic law that should be known as the Safe Streets for Pimps initiative. That's a good one. Safe Streets for Pimps. Progressive policy that goes sideways, and then everybody kind of goes, oh, why are we doing this? This is what we're doing? Huh. Which has allegedly not only left his town and other municipalities in the state dealing with an increase of sex workers on the street, but it's also incentivized human trafficking. That's the bottom line here, right? Is that this stuff, and vast majority of the girls that we see up in Aurora, they're not Seattle girls. They're not skinny, pasty girls. They're not. They're definitely from elsewhere. And I think a lot of them make there's routes that they make. They're up from California. This one has just opened the doors to prostitution, sex trafficking, child sex trading. I mean, you name it. This has obviously done that. Now, I don't think anyone that's just not purely politically motivated could disagree with that, Morrison said. Yeah, how does this benefit anybody other than the pimps? The mayor described himself as a nonpartisan who has worked at various levels of government over more than 30 years. His main focus is to look out for people in National City and their businesses and not play politics in Sacramento. Senate Bill 357 was authored by Democrat State Senator Scott Wiener. You got it. Remember him? Remember Scott Wiener? Showing the wiener? Yeah. Nice. This is not shocking, is it, from Mr. Show His Wiener, Scott Wiener, who championed the bill as one that would help protect transgender women from being targeted by police. I'm sorry. I thought you said this bill would help protect transgender women from being targeted by police. What? The previous law allowed police officers to arrest a person not based on what they did, but based solely on how a person looks. If you don't have any clothes on in public and you're looking at oncoming traffic and traffic going by and you're waving and you're doing this number, then you deserve to be arrested, right? For solicitation of prostitution. But that's just not what we're doing anymore. Wiener told this to media earlier this year. So an officer could arrest someone because they're wearing tight clothing, high heels, and extra lipstick. Well, no. That's just not happening. You have taken that theory and you've run with it to the point where you've ended up with just this absolute silliness going on. Fox News Digital previously spoke with members of the Coalition to Abolish Slavery and Trafficking, which is one of the largest and oldest direct service providers for workers, said that they supported the bill because we know that reducing the criminalization of survivors will help prevent human trafficking. What? Reducing the criminalization of survivors. Yeah, but you've also created this massive opportunity where there's no repercussions. So this is that backwards thinking. You got to throw some people in jail and you can't go after just the Johns. I mean, that's the favorite thing to do, right? Bust the Johns, let the girls go. Because they know that the girls are just going to take a beat down from their pimps. I mean, so traffickers rely on our systems to criminalize victims so they're unable to access safety due to their records and are vulnerable to continued exploitation. Well, you need to make some laws that, don't allow them to operate with just the ability to do whatever they want or whatever their pimps want. And that's what you've got here. That's where you ended up. So the impact of these encounters with law enforcement reinforce already heightened stigma when someone is arrested for this offense due to the difficulty securing employment and safe housing with an arrest record relating to the sex trade. Well, but there's got to be some repercussions for your actions. And without that, this is more and more women are going to be attracted to this industry because the odds of getting busted are so low and the money is so good for the pimps, not necessarily for the girls. Read about that all the time. So this is an example of a law that somebody Scott Wiener picked out, just some little bit. Now let's put it together. And then a bunch of knuckleheads down in California. This is a good idea. This makes sense. And then it gets enacted. And then you've got, reasonable people. Hey, we got shenanigans going on in our streets. What's the dealio? Oh, wait a minute. We knew what the dealio was here. This law is terrible. It's terrible. It does not help women. It doesn't. It doesn't. And the whole transgender one, it's like that logic there, that is a stretch at absolute best, right? That's just, what are you even talking about? That doesn't make any sense at all. So this stuff is out there. It is happening, and it's happening for a reason. And that reason is that we're just, that law is too conservative. That one, no, they got to be able to wear just G-strings and pasties. Anything else, and we're not going to accept it. Take everything away from any sense of morality. And, parents, if you don't like it, just don't drive your kids to school. Put some blinders on your child as you're going past the school and there's some, ladies out there with not much on. Put blinders on your children. That's your fault for being a bad parent. If you let your children look over on their way to school when they're almost in the parking lot, make your children behave. Kids looking out the window going, hey, what's going on out there? Lady's not wearing any clothes. You're right, son. She's not. Yeah, not good. Or have that conversation with your daughter, right? One of the, I was reading a story. Where was that? It was Instagram. It was somebody that was being recorded. They were off screen, but they were talking about it. They had young children. Was it in Portland or Seattle? I think it was in Portland. And they had young children, and they're also a teacher. And they were talking about the conversations of having these conversations with not only their students, but with their young children about the open air drug use and how that just normalizes that to children. It's like, if you go to school every day, like, you'll see people down in San Francisco shooting video. And I've showed that of little kids getting off the bus, and minute they get off the bus, get up on the sidewalk, there's a bunch of people shooting up and, dealing in stolen goods, dealing in drugs, buying and selling drugs, all that stuff, probably some human trafficking in there as well. But it normalizes the scenario of, they're just dealing drugs and they're just shooting drugs. That's okay. And so then, prostitution, prostitution's okay. It's fine. The girls are good. Look at them. They're healthy looking. You can see everything. They look healthy. It normalizes what should not be a thing at all. And so that teacher, a young individual with young kids and students, is like, this isn't going the right way. These kids are being conditioned that this is a part of society that is okay. And the concern is down the road, when they're of age, or not even, for young girls, that they're like, this is pretty normal. I saw it every day growing up. And they don't think that. They just react that way because it's been normalized. This kind of thing has been normalized. Seeing somebody in a G-string bending over in pasties is normal. It's normal. And we don't see that quite as much in Seattle, but, definitely lingerie. Let's put it that way. Lingerie, because it's a little too chilly for pasties here. Seattle's not a pasties environment. If you don't know what they are, they barely cover the nipples, right? It's a way to just, no, I wasn't naked, Your Honor. Well, yeah, okay. So, these laws allow that kind of thing. And then you've got folks that are, when somebody says they're independent, that means they're basically running in a Democratic area and they are a Republican. This guy's more conservative. Mayor Ron Morrison, he's conservative. If he really thought about his life, he's a Republican for sure. Right. Because he's up in arms with this. What are we doing here? My city's getting overrun with the ladies coming down, and it's not a good look. Now, some would say, it's fine. I like to look. Therein is part of the problem, right? you're basically doing voyeurism. And that's what those YouTube channels are. They are straight up voyeurism. But bottom line is sex sells, right? It sells. Some of the biggest accounts you have in social media are just young ladies, shaking what God and their mother gave them. And everybody's like, this is the best thing ever. Well, in this case here, this is not the best thing ever for these ladies. It's the best thing ever for their pimps, because they basically got that layer of, prosecution taken off them. Nah, my girl wasn't doing anything. You can't arrest her just for wearing that. This is just what she does. This is her work clothes. That's an IRS write-off. Crazy, right? All right. That's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you on the next one. Bye for now.